After an argument, my daughter cancelled my ticket and left me alone at the airport in New York without my phone or my wallet. A millionaire from a traditional family approached me and whispered, "Pretend to be my wife. My driver is arriving." Then he said, "Your daughter will regret leaving you. I am happy to have you here. Keep following my story until the end and comment what city you're watching me from so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Elara and I'm 64 years old. I never thought my own daughter would leave me stranded at an airport on the other side of the country. But that is exactly what happened 3 days ago in New York. It all started with what I thought would be a dream family vacation. Julia, my 8-year-old daughter, had invited me to accompany her on a business trip to the West Coast. "Mum, it's about time you see the world," she told me with that smile that always melted my heart. "After everything you've done for us, you deserve this." For years, I had worked double shifts as a nurse to help her with the expenses for her 2 children. When her husband left her, I was the one who moved in to help with everything. When she needed money for the new house, I drained my savings. When the kids needed expensive school uniforms, I paid for them. I always said yes because that is what mothers do. The trip had been wonderful for the first 4 days. We stayed at a luxurious hotel in downtown Los Angeles, visited the Griffith Observatory, and walked through the farmers market. Julia seemed relaxed, even affectionate. For the first time in years, I felt like I had my daughter back. But everything changed on the 5th morning. We were having breakfast at the hotel restaurant when Julia received a call. Her expression hardened as she listened. When she hung up, she looked at me with a coldness I had not seen since her rebellious teenage years. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, her voice completely different from the days before. "What is it?" "Sweetie, is everything okay?" "No, it is not okay." She leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with a hardness that scared me. "I just spoke to the kids' school principal. I need $25,000 for next year's private school tuition." My heart sank. "Julia, you know I do not have that amount." "What do you mean you do not have it? You have always had money when I needed it." "Because I have been using my retirement savings. Sweetie, what is left barely covers my living expenses." Her face completely transformed. The warmth she had shown during the trip vanished as if it had never existed. "Are you telling me you spent all your money on this idiotic trip instead of helping your own grandchildren?" "Julia, this trip was your idea. You paid for it. You said it was a gift." "Because I thought you had money saved up. I did not know you were so selfish." The words hit me like slaps. For the next 20 minutes, Julia screamed things at me that I will never forget. She called me a burden, a useless mother who had failed at everything. She said I had always been too soft, too cowardly to face real life, always needing someone else to solve your problems. She spat. "You were never a real mother, just someone who gave money when it suited you." When her outburst ended, she stood up. "Pack your things. I am taking you to the airport." "The airport? But our flight is not until tomorrow." "Your flight is today. I already changed your ticket." The ride to the airport was silent. I was trembling, trying to process what had happened. How had everything changed so fast? How could the daughter who had hugged me last night now look at me as if I were a stranger? At the airport, Julia handed me my passport. Your flight leaves in 6 hours. The gate is B23. Julia, please let us talk. I do not understand what happened. What happened is that I finally see who you really are. Her voice was cold as ice. A selfish woman who thinks only of herself. Selfish? I've given everything for you and the children. Yes. And now that I really need you, you have nothing to give. She turned to leave. Then she stopped. Oh. And your phone? I need to take it. It is under my family plan. My phone? But how am I going to communicate? That is not my problem. She held out her hand. Give it to me. With trembling hands, I gave her my phone. She also took my purse, arguing that the credit cards were also under her account. She left me with only my passport and $100 in cash that I had in my jacket pocket. Good luck. Mom, were her last words before disappearing into the crowd. I stood there, 64 years old, in a foreign airport without enough money. No phone, and no way to contact anyone. For the first time in my life, I was completely alone. The next few hours passed like a nightmare. When I got to gate B23, I discovered there was no flight. Julia had lied about that. 2. I tried to talk to the airline employees, but the language barrier made everything harder. I was sitting in a chair crying silently when I heard hurried footsteps behind me. I turned and saw an elegant man about 50 years old, dressed in an expensive suit. He had an urgent expression on his face. Excuse me. Ma'am, he said in English with a slight accent. Could you do me a very big favor? I looked at him confused, tears still running down my cheeks. I need you to pretend to be my wife for a few minutes. My driver is arriving, and there are some people I need to get away from. Could you help me? I do not know why, but something in his voice made me trust him. Maybe it was desperation, or maybe I just needed someone. Anyone to treat me like I mattered. Okay, I whispered. He helped me up, and we walked together toward the exit. While we waited, he looked at me with an expression I had not seen in a long time. Respect. Your daughter is going to regret leaving you here, he told me quietly. I did not know what he meant, but his words stayed with me. For the first time in hours, I felt a spark of something I did not know I had lost, my own dignity. The car that picked us up was more luxurious than anything I had ever been in. The driver, an older man with a kind smile, greeted us and then spoke in clear English for my comfort. My name is Victor Sterling, he told me as the car drove away from the airport. And you must be wondering what you have gotten yourself into. I nodded, still feeling as if I were in a strange dream. I am Elara Hayes. And yes, I am very confused. Victor smiled sadly. I saw what happened at the airport. Your daughter left you there. How do you know that was my daughter? Because I recognize that look. The same one my son gave me the last time I saw him 5 years ago. His voice broke slightly. There is a particular kind of cruelty that only children can show toward their parents. During the drive to his house, Victor told me his story. He was a widower. He had 3 grown children who had cut all contact with him after a dispute over his wife's will. They wanted him to sell everything and divide the money immediately. He wanted to keep the family businesses together. They accused me of being greedy, of putting money before family. They did not understand that everything I built was for them, for their children. Now I do not know my own grandchildren. When we arrived at his property, I could not hide my astonishment. It was a modern yet elegant mansion with perfectly manicured lawns and an impressive view of the city. Victor noticed my expression. "It is too big for just one man," he admitted. "But I cannot leave the place where I was happy with my wife." His housekeeper, an older woman named Martha, greeted us and offered iced tea and cookies. Victor explained the situation, and she looked at me with maternal understanding before showing me a beautiful room on the 2nd floor. "Stay as long as you need." Victor told me that first night during dinner. "I have no hidden agenda. I just understand what it is like to be abandoned by those we love the most." The next few days were surreal. Victor was a perfect host, respectful, attentive, but not intrusive. He lent me a phone so I could try to contact Julia, but she had blocked my number. When I called the house using Victor's phone, my oldest grandson, Leo, who is 16 years old, answered. "Grandma, where are you? Mum said you went on a trip alone." "Leo, sweetie, I am in Los Angeles. Your mom left me here." There was a silence. "That cannot be true. Grandma, Mom would not do that. Ask her. Leo, ask her why I cannot come home." That night, Leo called me back crying. "Grandma, Mom says you're a dramatic liar. She says you left because you wanted an adventure, and now you are making up stories to make her look bad." My heart broke. Julia had not only abandoned me, but she was poisoning my grandchildren against me. Victor found me sitting in the garden that night crying. He sat beside me without saying anything for a long time. "Do you know what the most painful part is?" I finally asked him. "It is not just that she left me. It is that she is turning my grandchildren against me. She is making them believe I am the bad one." Manipulators always rewrite the story, Victor told me gently. "My ex-daughter-in-law tells my grandchildren that I am a bad grandfather who does not want them. Now they do not even respond to my letters. How do you move on? How do you live with this pain?" Victor looked at me with wise eyes. I decided that if I was going to be alone, I would at least be surrounded by people who valued me for who I am, not for what I can give them. During the following week, Victor introduced me to his social circle. Other business owners, artists, professionals, many of whom had also faced family betrayals. For the first time in years, I found myself in conversations where my opinion mattered, where people listened to my stories of working as a nurse with genuine respect. "You have a very valuable perspective on patient care," a doctor told me during a dinner. "In my hospital, we need consultants with your experience." "Consultants?" I asked, confused. Victor smiled. "Elara, you have 40 years of experience in healthcare. That is worth gold here in Los Angeles, where they are expanding their health services." But while I was starting to feel valued for the first time in decades, a part of me was still hoping that Julia would call, that she would apologize, that she would admit her mistake. I kept checking the phone Victor had lent me, waiting for a message that never came. One afternoon, while Victor was in a business meeting, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Julia. "Mom, where the heck are you? The neighbors are asking about you." "I am in Los Angeles." "Julia, where you left me." "Do not be dramatic. I just needed time to think. Now come home. The kids need you." "Do the kids need me, or do you need me back to watch them while you go out?" "How dare you? I am a hard-working single mother. And I am a 64-year-old woman who spent her whole life and savings helping you only to be abandoned at a foreign airport. You have money to stay in luxurious hotels, apparently." "I am not in a hotel." "Julia, where are you then?" For the first time in my life, I decided not to explain everything to my daughter. I am where someone values me. What is that supposed to mean? It means that for the first time in years, someone is treating me like I have worth beyond my wallet. The silence on the other end was long. When Julia spoke again, her voice had a coldness that chilled my blood. "Okay. Mom, stay there with your new rich friends. But when you realize they do not really want you, do not come crying back." She hung up before I could answer. I stood there trembling, holding the phone when Victor returned from his meeting. "Elara, what happened?" "My daughter called," I whispered. "And I think I just lost my family forever." Victor sat next to me, his presence reassuring. Sometimes losing toxic people is the only way to find ourselves. His words resonated in my mind that night. For the first time, I began to wonder if Julia had always been like this, or if I was only now seeing the truth I had been denying for years. I had been living at Victor's house for 2 weeks when everything changed. I had started to feel comfortable, even useful. I helped Martha with the meals, organized Victor's library, and had started giving English lessons to some of his employees. For the first time in years, I felt valued for something more than my ability to give money. That morning, Victor seemed nervous during breakfast. He kept looking at me as if he wanted to say something, but held back. Finally, after Martha collected the dishes, he cleared his throat. "Elara, I need to tell you something, but I do not know how you will react." My stomach tightened. "What is it?" "Victor, is it about your daughter?" "Julia?" My heart skipped a beat. "What about Julia? Did something happen to her?" "No. It is not that." Victor stood up and walked to the window, avoiding my gaze. "Elara, does your daughter work for a company called Global Tech Solutions?" "Yes. She is the human resources manager there." "How do you know?" Victor turned to me, his expression serious. "Because one of my companies has a consulting contract with them. I have been in several meetings there in the last 6 months." "Have you seen her? Have you talked to her?" "Yes, Elara. And what I have seen..." He stopped, running a hand through his hair. "I do not know how to tell you this." "Just tell me." "Victor, please." He sat across from me and took my hands in his. "Your daughter has a terrible reputation in that office. The older employees are afraid of her." "Afraid? Why?" because she treats them like dirt. I have witnessed her yelling at them, humiliating them in public meetings, threatening them with termination if they do not do exactly what she wants. Victor paused, seeing my expression of shock. But the worst is what she says about older people in general. What does she say? That they are a burden to companies, that they are there out of pity, that they should retire and make way for younger, more capable people. I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. That cannot be. Julia is not like that. Elara. Last week I witnessed her making a 60-year-old secretary cry in front of the entire office. She told her she was too old and slow for modern work. Tears began to fall down my cheeks. But never with me. With you, it is different because she needed you. She needed your money, your free childcare, your unconditional support. Victor squeezed my hands gently. But now that you cannot give her what she wants, she is showing her true colors. How can you be so sure it is the same person? Victor took out his phone and showed me a photo. It was Julia in an office meeting, but her expression was unlike anything I had ever seen. She had a cruel, contemptuous smile as she talked to someone out of frame. I took this photo last week when she was yelling at an older employee for a minor mistake. My world reeled. The woman in that photo was my daughter, but she was also a stranger. How could I have been so blind? There is more. Victor continued gently. Yesterday, after our phone call, I did some discreet checking around. I talked to some colleagues who know her family situation. What did you find out? That she has been telling people for years that you are a burden, that you live off her because you cannot fend for yourself, that she has to support you because you never learned to be independent. Every word was like a knife stab. But I helped her for years. I paid her bills. I watched her children. I emptied my savings for her. I know, but she rewrote everything. In her version of the story, you are the parasite. I stood up abruptly, feeling nauseous. I need air. I walked out to the garden, Victor following at a respectful distance. I sat on the bench under the oak tree where we had spent so many afternoons talking. But now everything felt different. Everything I believed about my relationship with Julia was a lie. How long have you known? I asked when Victor sat beside me. Since the second week you arrived here, when you told me your last name and where Julia worked. The connection was immediate. Why did you not tell me sooner? Because I wanted to be sure and because I saw how much you love her despite everything. Victor sighed. Also because I wanted you to feel strong before you knew the truth. Strong? I laughed bitterly. I feel destroyed. No. Elara, look at you. 3 weeks ago, you were abandoned at an airport, feeling useless and rejected. Now, you are surrounded by people who value you, contributing your knowledge, finding your own voice. That is not weakness. He was right, but it hurt too much to admit it at that moment. There is something else you need to know, Victor continued gently. Yesterday, I called Global Tech to confirm some meeting dates. The secretary casually mentioned that Julia had been bragging about her free vacation to Los Angeles. Free vacation. She told everyone that she had sent you on an all-expenses-paid trip to get rid of you for a few weeks. that she had finally found a way to temporarily dispose of her maternal problem. Those words completely broke my heart. It had not been a gesture of love. It had been a strategy to push me away. I also found out that she is already looking for nursing homes in the area. She has called 3 different places in the last 2 weeks. "Nursing homes?" I whispered, horrified. "Her plan, apparently, is to have you declared mentally incompetent when you return, so she can take control of whatever money you have left." The world collapsed around me. My own daughter had not just abandoned me, but she had been planning to lock me up to steal the little I had left. "How can she be so cruel?" I cried. "I gave her everything. Everything. And she took advantage of it," Victor said firmly. "But Elara, listen to me closely. You are not responsible for someone else's cruelty, even if that person is your daughter." I could not sleep that night. I walked around the house processing everything Victor had revealed to me. Every memory of the past few years was reinterpreted under this new light. The time Julia had yelled at me in front of her friends. The times she had made me feel guilty for needing rest after watching the children all day. Her constant impatience with me as if my presence were a nuisance. Everything made sense now. I had not been a deficient mother. I had been a victim. The next morning, Victor found me in the kitchen preparing coffee before dawn. "Did you not sleep?" I could not. I turned to him. "Victor, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course." "Did you invite me to stay here because you feel sorry for me?" Victor looked me directly in the eyes. "I am going to tell you the complete truth. At first, yes, it was compassion. I recognized the pain of family abandonment because I have lived it. My heart sank. But," he continued, "in these 3 weeks, Elara, I have discovered that you are one of the most valuable people I have ever met. Your wisdom, your genuine compassion, your ability to find beauty even in pain. Do not stay here out of pity. Stay because you have so much to offer the world." For the first time since Victor had told me the truth about Julia, I felt a spark of hope. "Do you really think I can build a life here? A real life?" "I do not just think so. Elara, I know it, and I'm going to help you prove it to yourself." At that moment, something changed inside me. The woman who had been waiting for her daughter to value her died. In her place, a woman who was finally going to value herself began to be born. 2 days after the revelation about Julia, Victor came home with a proposal that would change everything. "Elara, do you remember I mentioned that we need healthcare consultants at one of my companies? I was helping Martha fold clean laundry, an activity I had started to find therapeutic." "Yes, I remember." "Well, I was serious. I have a meeting tomorrow with the medical director of the new geriatric care centre we are opening. They need someone with real experience in senior care to establish the care protocols." I stopped folding and looked at him. "Victor, I appreciate everything you have done, but you do not need to invent jobs for me." "I am not inventing anything." He took a folder from his briefcase. "Look at these documents. The project is real. The position is real. And frankly, after reviewing your experience, I think you would be perfect." I reviewed the papers. It was a luxury care facility designed specifically to provide high-quality care to seniors. The blueprints showed impressive facilities. But what caught my attention the most were the care protocols they had outlined. They were technically correct, but they lacked the human touch that 40 years of experience had taught me. "These protocols are fine," I commented, "but there are some things that could be improved." Like what? For the next hour, I explained to Victor the subtleties of geriatric care that are not taught in books, such as the importance of maintaining familiar routines, the correct way to communicate with patients with dementia, the small details that make the difference between clinical care and human care. Victor listened intently, taking notes. "Elara, this is exactly what we need. Will you come with me to the meeting tomorrow?" "As what? As your guest?" "As the senior consultant I am recommending for the position." I barely slept that night, but this time it was from excitement, not pain. It had been years since I felt professionally valued. At the hospital where I worked for decades, my experience had become routine. Here, Victor and his team saw it as something special. The meeting the next day was eye-opening. The medical director, Dr. Allen, was a brilliant young man, but clearly overwhelmed by the complexity of establishing humanized care protocols. "We have studied the best centers in Europe and the United States," he explained. "But we are missing something. Patients are technically well cared for, but families complain that there is a lack of warmth. Because you are treating people as medical cases instead of as human beings with histories," I told him. "An 80-year-old patient is not just someone who needs medication on time. They are someone who was perhaps a teacher, a parent, an artist. That history matters for their care." Over the next 2 hours, I showed them how small changes in protocols could completely transform the patient experience. How to personalize rooms with familiar objects. How to train staff to listen to stories, not just symptoms. How to create spaces where families felt welcome instead of tolerated. At the end of the meeting, Dr. Allen officially offered me the position. The salary was more than I had ever earned as a nurse. $5,000 monthly, plus health benefits and housing. "Housing?" I asked, confused. "We have apartments for senior staff in the same complex as the center," Victor explained. "Elara, this would give you complete independence." For the first time in weeks, I thought of Julia without pain. I thought of how she had seen me as a burden, as someone who could not fend for herself. Now I had the chance to prove the opposite, not to her, but to myself. "I accept," I said, and I felt as if I had woken up from a decades-long dream. The following days were a whirlwind of preparations. Victor helped me get all the necessary documents to work legally in Los Angeles. He introduced me to an immigration lawyer who explained the process for obtaining permanent residency. "With your experience in this position, you qualify for a work visa that can be renewed indefinitely," the lawyer explained. "After 2 years, you can apply for permanent residency." Meanwhile, I started working with the center's design team, helping them create spaces that truly served older patients. It was work I loved, using knowledge I had accumulated for decades, but had never fully valued. "Elara, do you realize how revolutionary these protocols are?" Dr. Allen told me one afternoon. "We are creating a model that other centers are going to want to copy." A week after accepting the position, I received a call I had been waiting for. It was Julia. "Mom, when are you going to stop this ridiculousness and come home? The kids need you." "Hello, Julia," I said calmly. "How are Leo and Ella?" "They are fine, but they miss their grandmother, especially Leo." My heart contracted. "I miss my grandchildren terribly. Can I talk to him? He is at school." "Mom, let us be serious. This phase of independence has lasted long enough. It is time for you to return to your real life." "This is my real life, Julia." "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means I have a job here. A real job with a real salary where my experience is valued." There was a long silence. "A job? Mom, you are 64 years old. What kind of job could you possibly have there?" "I am a senior consultant at a medical center. I am helping establish geriatric care protocols." "That is ridiculous. Who is going to give you a job at your age? They are probably trying to scam you." "My boss is Victor Sterling. You can look him up if you want." Another silence. Then I heard typing on a computer. I knew Julia was looking up Victor on the internet. "Mom." Her voice had completely changed. "Are you living with a millionaire?" "I am living in the house of a friend who helped me when you abandoned me." "I did not abandon you. I just needed space to think." "Julia, you left me at a foreign airport without money or a phone. That is called abandonment." "Okay, maybe I exaggerated. But now you can come back. All is forgiven." "Forgiven?" I laughed without humor. "You forgive me. Mom, do not make this harder than it has to be. I know you are upset, but you proved your point. Now come home." "My home is here now, Julia." "Your home? Mum. What is going to happen when that man gets tired of you? When he realizes you are just a penniless old woman?" Her words hurt me, but this time in a different way. They did not hurt because they were true, but because they revealed exactly what Julia thought of me. "Julia, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Have you ever seen me as anything more than a free babysitter and a source of money?" "How can you ask me that? You are my mother." That does not answer my question. A long silence. When Julia spoke again, her voice had that familiar coldness. "You know what, Mum? If you want to play independent with your new rich boyfriend, go ahead. But when everything falls apart, do not come asking for help." "I will not need help. Julia, for the first time in my life, I am building something for myself." I hung up the phone, feeling a strange mix of sadness and liberation. Victor, who had been reading in the living room but clearly listening to the conversation, approached. "How do you feel?" "Like I just cut the last chain that tied me to a life that was never really mine." "And is that good or bad?" I thought for a moment. "It is terrifying, but it is also liberating." Victor smiled. "Welcome to your new life, Elara." That night, as I packed my few belongings to move into my new apartment near the medical center, I found the phone Victor had lent me. It had several messages from numbers I did not recognize. I checked them and discovered they were from neighbors and acquaintances from my old life. Elara. Julia says you left with a rich man and abandoned her. Is it true that you left your grandchildren for money? Your daughter is very worried about you. She says that man is manipulating you. Each message showed me how Julia was rewriting the story once more. But this time, I did not care. The opinions of people who did not know the whole truth no longer had power over me. I deleted all the messages and turned off the phone. Tomorrow, my new life would begin. And for the first time in decades, that life would be completely mine. 3 months had passed since I started my new life in Los Angeles. The geriatric center had opened its doors 6 weeks ago, and we already had a waiting list. The protocols we had developed were working better than anyone had expected. Families spoke of the warmth of the place, how their loved ones were not just well cared for, but genuinely happy. Doctor. Alan had promoted me to Director of Patient Wellness with a salary increase to $7,000 monthly. For the first time in my life, I had more money than I needed to live. My apartment was beautiful. I had genuine friends, and I woke up every morning with purpose. That Thursday morning, Martha called me early. Elara, dear, you need to come to Victor's house right now. What is wrong? Is Victor okay? He's fine. But there is someone here who insists on seeing you. A young woman with 2 children. She says she is your daughter. My blood ran cold. Is Julia there? Yes. And she is very upset. She has been yelling for an hour. I am on my way. The trip from my apartment to Victor's house never felt so long. My hands were trembling as the driver Victor had placed at my disposal navigated the morning traffic. What was Julia doing in Los Angeles? And why had she brought the children? When I arrived, I could hear the shouting from the garden. Julia's sharp, furious voice pierced through the closed windows. This is ridiculous. I demand to see my mother right now. I walked in the front door and found her in the living room, pacing like a caged animal, while Victor remained seated in his chair, calm but clearly tense. Leo and Ella were on the couch, looking uncomfortable and scared. Grandma. Ella ran toward me and hugged me tightly. She was 10 years old now. She had grown so much in these 3 months. My love, I whispered, hugging her back. Leo, now 17 years old, approached more slowly, but I could see the relief in his eyes. Grandma, Mom said you were in trouble, Leo murmured. She said a bad man had kidnapped you. Julia turned toward us, her eyes blazing with a fury I had not seen before. Finally. Mom, grab your things. We are leaving right now. Good morning, Julia, I said calmly. How have you been? How have I been? Her voice broke into a hysterical note. How do you think I have been? My mother disappears for 3 months, ignoring her family, living with a stranger. And you ask me how I have been. I did not disappear. Julia, you know exactly where I have been because we have spoken several times. Spoken? 5 minutes of conversation where you act like you are too important for your own family. Victor slowly stood up. Mum, perhaps it would be better if we took this conversation to the study. The children do not need to hear this. Do not tell me what is best for my children. Julia turned to him like an attacking snake. And do not call me Mom. I. Prolonged cohabitation with hostile people. You want surveillance? Any method that documents their behavior legally. Cameras in the common areas of your own home. Legal. Living room. Kitchen. Hallways. Audio and video. Cloud backup. Access from your phone. She gave me a quote. $5,000 upfront retainer, plus hourly fees. I signed the contract without hesitation. The money was worthless compared to the truth. I'll need access on Tuesday, she said. Could you get them out for a couple of hours? I'll arrange it. On Tuesday morning, during breakfast, I casually mentioned, I need some things from that specialty market in Coral Gables. Would you mind picking them up? Maybe we can grab lunch together. I gave them a detailed list. Things from a store 30 minutes away. They left at 10. I texted Veronica. She arrived 15 minutes later with equipment cases. Cameras were placed on a living room bookshelf, in a kitchen clock above the table, and in a hallway smoke detector. Small, invisible, recording everything. 90 minutes later, installation complete. Everything completely normal, she stated. Don't let them know you're watching. The best evidence comes when they feel safe. That night, I sat in my study with headphones on, watching the day's recordings. Their return from the errand. The conversation in the kitchen as they unpacked groceries. He's too quiet, Elena said, her voice tight with worry. It's suspicious. We need another approach. Julian leaned against the counter, arms crossed. The direct hit didn't work. Time for the indirect hit. I saved the file, dated it, and labeled it Evidence Log Entry 1. The following days allowed me to build my case. February 28th. Julian discussed contingency plans. March 1st. Elena worried that I was acting strangely. March 2nd. They looked up lawyers to challenge my mental competency. March 3rd. Julian's search history showed declarations of parental incapacity. Every conversation was documented, saved, and organized into folders by topic. I watched them conspire against me with the methodical patience of someone building a legal case brick by brick. Veronica sent weekly reports, their social media activity, online purchases, public record searches, the digital trail of people preparing for war. On March 4th, I decided to give them exactly what they wanted. At breakfast, I rubbed my temples. I've been feeling so tired lately. Their heads snapped up like bloodhounds on a scent. That night at dinner, I feigned forgetting where I had left my reading glasses. I've been very forgetful. Elena leaned forward, feigning concern. Maybe you should see a doctor. Dad. It's normal at your age, Julian added casually, but it's definitely worth checking out. I nodded, playing the confused old man. Later, reviewing the recording, I saw them celebrate my confession as if it were a gift. On the night of March 18th, after 3 weeks of evidence, dozens of conversations, and hundreds of hours of recording, I opened my phone and found Harrison Cole's number. Tomorrow, we would build a strategy. It was time to move from documentation to action. The articles appeared on March 5th. I found them scattered on the kitchen counter that morning. Printed pages about cognitive decline, the early symptoms of dementia, and the importance of medical evaluation for seniors. Elena was by the coffee maker watching my reaction. I found this online. I thought it might be helpful to understand what's been happening with you. I picked up the first article and skimmed it with appropriate confusion. I suppose reading wouldn't hurt. Knowledge is power, Julian added from the doorway. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I took the articles to my study, photographed each page, and filed them as evidence. Psychological manipulation documented. They were constructing a narrative. The confused old man who needed intervention, who couldn't be trusted to handle his own affairs. Over the next 3 days, more articles appeared. Residences for people with dementia. The importance of power of attorney. Financial management for those experiencing cognitive difficulties. Each one was carefully placed where I would find it. Each one was photographed and filed. On March 8th, the surveillance cameras caught them in the living room, believing they were alone. "We need an expert opinion," Julian said. "Someone who can evaluate him professionally." "A psychologist?" Elena's voice held equal parts hope and guilt. "I know someone." "Dr. Elias Thorne, a clinical psychologist specializing in elderly cognition. We set up a casual lunch. I introduce them. Elias makes observations. Will he do it ethically? Will he be objective? If your father shows symptoms, Elias documents them. If not," Julian shrugged, "then we'll know for sure." I watched this conversation 3 times, taking notes. The tension was escalating. They were seeking external validation for their version of events. On March 10th, I met Julian for lunch at a cafe in Coconut Grove. He had suggested it that morning so we can get to know each other better without the stress of work. And I accepted with appropriate gratitude. Dr. Elias Thorne joined us 15 minutes in. "Hey, this is my friend Elias." I mentioned him, the psychologist. We shook hands. Elias, about 40-something, professional demeanor, cautious eyes. "Julian told me about you. Successful sale. Congratulations." We talked for an hour. My performance was impeccable. I occasionally searched for words, asked Elias to repeat questions, and commented on my forgetfulness. I didn't exaggerate, just a hint of confusion. Elias maintained professional distance, but I caught him watching me, evaluating, cataloguing. "It was a pleasure meeting you," Elias said as lunch ended, handing me his card. "If you ever want to discuss professional topics, I'm available." I put the card in my pocket. Evidence, not service. That night, the surveillance cameras recorded Julian calling Elias from the living room. The speakerphone on. "What did you think?" Julian asked impatiently. "He's 63. Some age-appropriate variation in memory isn't unusual." Elias's voice was carefully neutral. "I can't make clinical assessments based on an informal lunch conversation. But if there were genuine concerns, I could evaluate him formally, with his consent." Yes. But Julian, I'm not comfortable being part of this. If you have legitimate concerns about his well-being, there are proper channels. Sure. I'm just exploring options. After hanging up, Julian's face darkened. We'll find someone else. I saved that recording with particular satisfaction. Even when they tried to corrupt professionals, ethics intervened. From March 12th to 17th, I continued my performance. Small errors, confusion, repeated questions. On the 15th, at breakfast, I asked Elena about the plans we had discussed the night before, feigning forgetfulness. Her eyes lit up with excitement, barely concealed. The surveillance cameras recorded everything. Their conversations about my decline. Julian researching commitment procedures. Elena worrying that things were moving too slowly. On March 18th, I adjusted my strategy. At dinner, I casually commented that I had been thinking about updating my will. Julian suggested it given the business sale. I want to make sure everything is in order. A dead silence fell. Then Elena, trying to sound nonchalant. That's responsible. Dad, when are you meeting with him? He'll be preparing the documents soon. Making sure you're well taken care of. I left the words hanging in the air. Bait in a trap. After dinner, I retreated to my study. The surveillance cameras recorded them in the kitchen. They spoke in low voices, but the microphone caught everything. He mentioned the will, Elena said, barely containing her hope. That doesn't mean he's changing it in our favor. Julian's voice held a warning. It could be the opposite. But if he really is confused, if we document that he's not competent when making changes, then we challenge them later. Either way, we need more evidence of his decline. Real evidence, not just observations. They talked for 40 minutes, planning how to document my supposed incompetence. Video, everything. Record strange behavior. Build a case for incapacity that would invalidate any legal change against their interests. I watched them celebrate their cleverness, pouring wine and toasting to progress. They thought they were winning. I closed the laptop, opened my phone, and searched for Harrison Cole's number. 3 weeks of recordings, conversations, plans, attempts at manipulation, psychological warfare, all captured with perfect digital clarity. Tomorrow, we would discuss how weeks of evidence could be turned into a legal strategy, how surveillance could be a tool for pressure, how their own words could destroy them. I had documented their plan with the same methodical patience they had used on mine. Only I had done it better. With more detail. With more strategy. It was time to move to the next phase. It was time to show them what happened when they underestimated a man who built an empire from scratch, who understood that true power lay in preparation, documentation, and knowing exactly when to strike. I texted Harrison, I have new compelling evidence. Need an urgent meeting. He responded in minutes. Friday at 10, 0 inches the morning. Bring everything. I hung up the phone. Through the study window, the moonlight painted the lawn silver. In the house around me, they slept soundly, believing they were the architects of my ruin. They had no idea they were building their own. The morning light streamed through the study windows, March 19th at 8, I picked up the phone and dialed Harrison Cole's direct number. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Sterling, your message said you had evidence. Weeks of it. Surveillance recordings. Conversations. Attempts at manipulation. All documented. I need to meet today. This afternoon at 2, bring everything. I spent the morning organizing it. I created a folder on my laptop called Legal Evidence Package. Surveillance files copied, organized by date and severity. Printed transcripts of their most damning conversations. Julian talking about competency challenges. Elena worried about my suspicious silence. Both celebrating their supposed progress toward controlling my assets. Veronica's weekly reports went into a manila envelope, underlined and tabbed. I loaded everything onto 2 USB drives, one for Harrison and one backup. At 2, I sat across from Harrison in his conference room. The USB drive and documents between us, like exhibits in a trial. He watched 3 hours of recording, read all the transcripts, and studied Veronica's behavioral analysis. Finally, he leaned back, fingers interlaced. This is extensive. Multiple legal options, restraining orders, civil lawsuit, criminal charges for attempted poisoning. He tapped the trust document I had mentioned. But first, we protect your assets. Irrevocable living trust. How does that work? Assets are transferred to the trust. It becomes an independent legal entity. An independent trustee administers it. You set the conditions for beneficiary access. Once signed, they are untouchable. Not even you can modify them. He pulled out a notepad and began sketching the structure. We'll make it bulletproof. They won't be able to access it through lawsuits, manipulate the administrators, or effectively challenge it. How long would it take? A week. If we act now, you'll transfer the majority of your assets. Keep enough liquidity for personal use. We'll establish strict conditions for Elena's eventual access. What conditions? Harrison smiled. A sharp professional grin. Whatever you want. Age requirements. Financial independence. Absence of pending lawsuits. In short, any measure that ensures she cannot access the money through coercion or fraud. Over the next 5 days, we built an impenetrable fortress around my wealth. March 20th. Trust structure designed. $25 million transferred to the trust. $5 million kept liquid for my use. Elena could access it at age 45, 9 years from now, if she demonstrated 5 years of financial independence and had no civil or criminal cases against her for financial reasons. On March 23rd, a meeting with Florida Fiduciary Services, 2 fiduciary officers, professional and impartial, explained their role. They would follow this document to the letter. No family pressure. No manipulation. No exceptions. March 24th. Final signing. Harrison's conference room again. But this time with a notary and fiduciary officers present. The documents lay across the table like a treaty ending a war. I signed each page. Initialed and dated. The notary officially sealed each signature. Your assets are protected, Harrison said as I put the copies in a leather folder. She cannot manipulate, coerce, or sue you for them. The trust is irrevocable. Case closed. I drove home with a feeling I hadn't felt since February. Power, control, security. At home, life continued its strange theatre. They still knew nothing of the trust. The surveillance cameras recorded their casual conversations about the inheritance, their certainty that eventually my money would be theirs. March 28th. Breakfast. Buttered toast. Elena mentioned when we inherit, as if it were inevitable. That night, Julian's laptop search history, how to challenge a will in Florida. I decided to tell them on April 1st, an auspicious date for plans to unravel. On March 31st, I texted both of them. Family meeting tomorrow. 10:00 the morning. In the living room. Important. Harrison had advised doing it in public or with witnesses. They could become aggressive. My house, I replied. My rules. The cameras would record everything. April 1st arrived. A clear, bright day. I set up my laptop connected to the television with the surveillance footage ready. At 10, they entered the living room. A palpable, nervous energy in the air. I stood. They sat. The sofa was lower than I was, establishing a hierarchy. I have made decisions about my estate. I filed the trust document. I have created an irrevocable living trust. Their attention sharpened. I explained systematically. $25 million transferred. Independent trustee. Conditions of access. Minimum age 45. Financial independence. No pending lawsuits. I watched their faces register comprehension. What? Elena's voice cracked. Are you cutting me out? I am protecting my assets from manipulation. Julian leaped up from the sofa. All this over the restaurant. A mistake. And you? A mistake. I picked up the remote and hit play. Their voices filled the room. Surveillance footage. Them talking about my competency issues. Planning to document my decline. Celebrating their progress toward the inheritance. You spied on us, Elena cried now. Your own daughter. I protected myself from those who tried to drug me into signing legal documents. We're going to sue. Julian stepped forward, poorly disguising his aggression. We're going to challenge this. You can't. It's irrevocable. It's done. Legally bulletproof. I looked him in the eyes without blinking. Try to challenge it. Don't waste your money on lawyers. We've lived here for 5 years. We have rights. You have no rights to my money. You never did. Julian stormed out. Elena followed, sobbing. I went back to my study, reviewed the camera recording of the confrontation I had just captured, saved it with the date and time, and a label, evidence of reaction. The rage confirmed their guilt. The following week, the house became a battlefield. Doors slamming. Hostile silence. Calls to lawyers were overheard, all saying the same thing. The trust was solid, unshakable. On April 7th, Elena attempted reconciliation. She knocked on my study door, tears welling up. Dad, We can fix this. I'm your daughter. My daughter would never have tried to poison me. It was a mistake. Please leave my study. She left. I sat alone, staring at the wall, knowing what came next. The trust protected my money. Now, I needed to reclaim my house. I opened my notebook and wrote 4 words: get them out of the house. That same night, I called a real estate agent, Linda Moretti, recommended by my banker for her discretion and speed. I want to sell my house. When can we list it? I can see it tomorrow morning. If it's as you describe, we could list it this weekend. April 8th. She arrived with a tape measure and a professional appraisal. I walked through the rooms where my daughter and son-in-law still lived, evaluating the market value of the house they were borrowing. A lovely property. I can list it for $7 million. This market moves fast, but the property must be vacant for showings. It will be. The listing went live on April 10th. First showings scheduled for April 12th. I notified Elena and Julian via text message. Showings Friday. You'll need to be out for 3 hours. You're selling the house? Julian replied by text. Yes. There was no response. They left on Friday morning. And when they returned, they found business cards from potential buyers on the kitchen counter. Their faces registered the comprehension that I was completely dismantling their life. On April 15th, I asked Harrison to draft the eviction notice formal, legal, final, giving them 60 days to vacate. I handed it to them that night as they sat in the living room, their borrowed living room. Julian read it, his face darkening. He tore it in half. You can't evict us. This is our home. Read the notice. Challenge it all you want. No lease. No rent. No tenant rights. 60 days. June 15th. We'll fight this. Try it. They hired a lawyer on April 16th. I listened to their consultation call via surveillance cameras. The lawyer's assessment matched Harrison's. If there's no lease, he has grounds. You live there by permission, which he is now revoking. Harrison filed the eviction lawsuit on April 20th. The court date was set for May 3rd, 3 weeks away. Meanwhile, I rented an apartment downtown, month-to-month lease, oceanfront, quiet, a clean place, no grudges. I moved out on April 28th. The house became hostile territory. I stayed mostly at the apartment, returning only for necessities. On each visit, the surveillance cameras captured their desperation. Elena crying, Julian raging, both calling lawyers who had no solutions. May 10th arrived. Miami-Dade Courthouse. 3rd floor. Eviction trial. Harrison and I sat at the plaintiff's table. Across the aisle, Elena, Julian, and their lawyer. Young and overmatched, aware he had no case. Judge Vance took the bench. A man in his 52nds, serious-looking, experienced in seeing people try to evade consequences. Their lawyer stood. Your Honor, my clients have lived in this property for 5 years. Under what agreement? Judge Vance interrupted. His family. The plaintiff is Ms. Sterling Fox's father. That is not a lease agreement. Do they pay rent? No. Do they have a written lease? No. Your Honour. Then they are guests without a contract. Mr. Sterling has given appropriate 60-day notice. He looked at Harrison. Yes. Your Honour. Served on April 15th. They have until June 15th to vacate. Judge Vance reviewed the documents. I see no legal impediment to this eviction. The plaintiff is the owner of the property. The defendants have no lease or rental agreement. Notice was proper. He looked at Elena and Julian. You have until June 15th. After that date, law enforcement can intervene. Motion granted. The gavel cracked. Final decision. In the hallway, Julian confronted me, his voice low and menacing. You'll regret this. You're destroying your own family. I am removing those who poisoned me. We'll make you pay. With what money? I walked away, leaving him sputtering in the hallway. The next 5 weeks were a tense standoff. I stayed at the apartment. They remained in the house, packing slowly, desperately searching for rental properties they couldn't afford without my help. The surveillance cameras recorded endless arguments. Elena breaking down. Julian's fury at their complete defeat. On June 14th, I received confirmation. The buyer of the house had completed the inspection and the sale was approved for closing in August. Pending possession handover. June 15th was moving day. I arrived at the house at noon. A large moving truck was in the driveway loading furniture. Elena, eyes red, face haggard, gave instructions to the movers. Julian loaded boxes, his jerky movements reflecting contained fury. They didn't even greet me. I stood on the lawn watching them load their possessions. Everything I had bought for them. Everything they had accumulated during 5 years of living off my generosity. The truck pulled away at 4. They drove off in Julian's car without looking back. I entered the empty house, the echo of footsteps ringing on the hardwood floor. No furniture. No trace of them. No trace of poison in the air. Room by room, I walked through the reclaimed space. Marks on the walls where pictures once hung. Indentations in the carpet where furniture had been. The house felt like an empty shell, contaminated by what had happened inside, but finally blissfully empty. My phone vibrated. Harrison. Eviction completed. Ready to talk civil lawsuit. I stood in the center of the living room. My living room. Looking around at the emptiness. Selling the house would erase their presence completely. But first, one more legal action. One final blow. I texted back. Yes. Let's schedule a meeting for Monday. It's time for this to be definitive. I wrote my reply to Harrison. Yes. Let's schedule the meeting for Monday. It was time for this to be permanently on the record. The empty living room surrounded me. No furniture. Just the hardwood floor and the echo. I sat down, my back against the wall, laptop resting on my knees, and opened the evidence folders one last time. Months of documentation, surveillance recordings ordered by date, hospital medical records, Matteo's statement. Veronica's reports. Every conversation. Every attempt at manipulation. Every proof that what happened to me was not paranoia, but premeditated exploitation. I created a final chronological document, printed everything, and organized it into a tabbed, expanding folder. Each item told part of the story. Taken together, they were undeniable. On Monday morning, June 16th, I met Harrison in his office. He spread the evidence across the conference table as if it were an indictment. Civil lawsuit under Florida Statute 825.103, Harrison said, taking notes. Elder exploitation. Financial manipulation. Attempted battery by drugging. Coercion. Aggravated emotional distress. Fraud. Conspiracy. Seeking $500,000 in damages plus costs. This isn't about money, I said. I know. It's about public record documenting what they did. He looked up from his notes. You want consequences? Exactly. We filed the complaint on June 17th. Elena and Julian received the court notification in their new apartment. A small two-bedroom unit in a neighborhood far removed from the luxury of Coral Gables. The process server reported they had barely unpacked. Their lawyer contacted Harrison a few days later, his voice tight on the speakerphone. My clients can't afford this. They're already ruined. They should have considered that before attempting to drug and defraud their benefactor, Harrison replied coldly. Discovery began. Harrison requested their financial records. Bank statements revealed the truth. No savings. Living paycheck to paycheck on credit cards. Drowning in debt created by their life expectations. On June 28th, the settlement offer arrived. I met Harrison in his office to review it. $50,000 payment plan. Private admission of guilt. No trial. It's reasonable, Harrison said cautiously. They clearly can't pay the full judgment, but the settlement would be confidential. No public record. I slid the papers back across his desk. No. I want this to be public. I want it on the court records forever. Trial is risky. The judge could award less compensation. I don't care about the money. I care about the record. I looked him in the eyes. They tried to destroy me. I want official record that they were wrong and I was right. Harrison nodded slowly. Then we go to trial. July became the month of preparation. Matteo confirmed he would testify. The hospital doctor provided an expert affidavit. Veronica prepared the surveillance evidence for court presentation. I gave a deposition. Hours of questions answered under oath, laying the factual foundation. July 25th. Preliminary hearing. The judge set the trial date for July 28th. That Monday morning dawned clear and hot. I dressed in my best suit and arrived early at the Miami-Dade County Courthouse. Judge Hastings presided. She was in her 50 seconds. Known for her impartiality and strong rulings, Harrison had recommended a bench trial instead of a jury trial. Judges understand elder law better than average citizens, he explained. Opening statements. Harrison presented the timeline and evidence summary with meticulous precision. Their lawyer, young and out of his depth, argued that a family misunderstanding had been exaggerated. Matteo testified first. He described the restaurant incident with full conviction. I saw Mrs. So. Sterling Fox pour something from a small vial into Mr. Sterling's wine glass while he was away from the table. Clear. Liquid. Deliberate action. Their lawyer attempted cross-examination. Could you have been mistaken? No. I know what I saw. I couldn't keep quiet. The hospital doctor explained the diazepam analysis results. Dosage. Dangers. Veronica presented the surveillance methodology, chain of custody, and authentication of the recordings. Day 2. July 29th. The surveillance video played on the courtroom screen. Their own voices filled the space, discussing competency issues, planning Elias's consultation, and celebrating their supposed progress toward the inheritance. Julian said, "He's 63, not lucid anymore." Elena's voice said, "We deserve this money." I watched Judge Hastings take notes, her expression serious and focused. Elena testified, crying. She admitted to the restaurant incident, but claimed she only wanted him to listen to her about important papers. Julian testified. Defensive and hostile. He blamed me for overreacting to a family conflict. Then it was my turn. The witness stand felt solemn, formal, everyone watching me. I stated my name, my age, and my relationship to the defendants. I answered Harrison's questions calmly and precisely. Restaurant surveillance, trust creation, eviction. I presented the evidence one by one. Cross-examination became aggressive. "Aren't you being vengeful, Mr. Sterling? I'm seeking accountability. There's a difference." Judge Hastings asked her own question. Why pursue a civil suit after fiduciary protection and eviction? I looked straight at her. Because what they did was wrong. It needs to be on public record for my protection, as a precedent for the truth. July 30th. Closing arguments. Harrison, this is a textbook case of elder exploitation, attempted battery by drugging, financial manipulation, psychological coercion. The evidence is overwhelming. Their lawyer, family conflict and poor judgment. Yes, but not criminal exploitation. Judge Hastings closed her notebook. I will issue the ruling in writing in 2 weeks. I left the courthouse in the late afternoon heat with the satisfaction of having completed my task. I spoke the truth publicly, presented the evidence. Now justice would decide if the truth mattered. 2 weeks of waiting. 2 weeks wondering if the system would validate what I had suffered or dismiss it as family drama. I returned to my temporary apartment, watched the sunset over Biscayne Bay, and waited for the world to confirm what I already knew, that I had been right to protect myself, to defend myself, to demand justice. August 15th. The dawn light filtered over the ocean outside my balcony. Coffee steamed in my hand. Bitter. Familiar. Comforting. 2 weeks after the trial ended, the phone rang at 9. Mr. Sterling. Harrison. We have the verdict. I sat down. The infinite ocean stretching out before me. The judge ruled in your favor. Total victory. Clear and convincing evidence of elder exploitation. attempted financial fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress was found. Judgment for $350,000 plus court costs, $75,000 in punitive damages, $425,000 total. The number seemed abstract. "There's more," Harrison continued. "Permanent restraining order. They are prohibited from contacting you directly or indirectly. No calls. No letters. No communications through third parties. Violation results in contempt charges. And the payment? They have nothing. Court-ordered payment plan. Garnishment of future wages until the debt is settled could take years. But the judgment is public record. Searchable permanent documentation of what they attempted. That's what I wanted. Not the money. Documentation. Validation. Public record that I wasn't paranoid or cruel. That I was the victim of an attack. And I had every right to defend myself. Thank you, Harrison, for everything. You did the work. I just legalized it." After hanging up, I sat watching the sunrise. The written opinion arrived by email an hour later. I read every page. Judge Hastings wrote, "The evidence presented demonstrates the premeditated exploitation of an elderly person by those in positions of trust. The incident at the restaurant, the attempt to drug someone to facilitate document signing, constitutes a felony in itself. Subsequent surveillance recordings reveal ongoing manipulation and planning. This court finds the defendant's actions reprehensible and deserving of the maximum civil sanctions." Reprehensible. Maximum penalty. Public document. I printed the opinion and filed it. One more document in a case now closed. On August 16th, I closed on the sale of the Coral Gables house. Sold to a young family for $2.75 million. They will never know what happened within those walls. They will fill it with different memories, different lives, different futures. That same day, I bought a downtown apartment. 10th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Ocean views to the horizon. $850,000 cash purchase from the house sale. Modern. Impeccable. No history. I moved in on August 18th. Furniture arrived and was simply placed. Nothing excessive. Nothing unnecessary. The space felt like taking a breath after being underwater. August 20th. Last meeting with Veronica in her Pinewood office. The certification still hung on the wall. "Case closed," she said, handing me a USB drive. All the surveillance recordings, reports, and documentation. Go on the record that I thank you for everything. You made it easy. They were predictable. She stood and extended her hand. Take care. Mr. Sterling. We shook hands. The matter concluded. The professional relationship was over. On August 22nd, I sat on my new balcony, phone in hand. I searched for Elena's contact, my finger hovering over the screen. Delete contact. A confirmation box popped up. I pressed yes. Her name vanished. Julian's followed. Both disappeared from my phone, from my life, from my future. The restraining order legally barred them from communication. even if they wanted to apologize, reconcile, or explain. The law prevented it. 3 years minimum, enough time for life to move on without them. I felt nothing, neither satisfaction nor sadness, just a serene peace. On August 23rd and 24th, I established new routines. Coffee on the balcony in the morning, walks by the sea in the afternoon, reading at night with the sound of the ocean drifting through the open windows. I called old friends I had neglected during the chaos, made lunch plans, reconnected, and rebuilt my social life outside of surveillance and legal battles. On August 25th, the sunset painted the sky in layers, orange blending into purple, then deep blue. I stood on my balcony, coffee cooling in my hand, watching the day turn into night. 6 months since February. Since that restaurant, since Matteo's warning, the glass switch, and everything that followed. I protected my assets through the trust, evicted them from my house, held them accountable with a civil judgment, and put their exploitation on public record. I won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like survival, like emerging from dark waters and realizing I was still breathing. My daughter had tried to poison me. That truth weighed on me, unchangeable. But I refused to be a victim. I refused to accept the manipulation. I refused to let trust make me vulnerable to destruction. The ocean stretched infinitely, the horizon line crisp and defined. Somewhere in the city behind me, Elena and Julian lived with the consequences. A court debt that would follow them for years. A public record that affected their job applications and background checks. A restraining order that prevented them from spinning their story or seeking reconciliation on their own terms. I didn't hate them. Hate required energy, attention, emotional dedication, all that I had dedicated to documentation, preparation, and legal battles. Now I only had peace. The sun touched the horizon. The colors deepened, and the city lights began to twinkle behind me. My coffee was cold, but I didn't move to refill it. I simply stood there, watching the cycle of nature continue, oblivious to human drama. I built an empire from nothing, sold it for $30 million, protected $25 million through an unshakable trust, lost a daughter, but saved myself. I found justice in the courts, and peace in separation. Some stories end with family reunions, forgiveness, and healing. This one ended with distance, documentation, and the relief of being safe. The sun disappeared behind the ocean, darkness settling around me. I finished my cold coffee, left the cup on the balcony railing, and watched the stars appear. Tomorrow I would call my former partner about that consulting opportunity. Next week, I would have lunch with friends. Eventually, I would date, travel, and fill my days with something other than litigation. But tonight I simply stood here, free, protected, alone, but not lonely. The ocean whispered against the shore below. The city hummed with its infinite rhythm. Life went on, indifferent to individual struggles, offering new days to those who survived old battles. I had survived, and that was enough. If you liked this story, please hit like on this video. subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click on the box to the left. Thank you for watching.